Well, hello students, this is Coach Holliday, and today we're talking about functions. It's a continuation of our lesson on relations from yesterday. Go ahead and take your note packet out, and let's get started. Before we get going though, make sure that you remember that if you didn't understand something as I go through this, go ahead and hit the pause and rewind and go back and cover that again, okay? Here we go. What is a function? A function is basically a relation, which we talked about yesterday. Remember, a relation is just a set of ordered pairs with x values, which are called the domain, and y values, which are called the range. Remember, we talked about that yesterday, okay? We want to think of a function as a machine where you're putting something into it and something comes out of it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have my domain, these are my x values, and I'm going to plug these into the machine, and the machine is going to do something with it. It's going to take that x and it's going to multiply it by 2 and then add 3. So let's start with our first x value, which is -1. If I take that -1 and put it into the function and plug it right there, that gives me 2 times -1 plus 3. And when I do that math, that gives me +1. So my first order pair is going to have -1 for the x, the domain, and +1 for the y. Easy as that, okay? All right, let's do our second one. Our second one is 0. Our second domain value is 0. Plug that in for the x and get 2 times 0 plus 3. When I do the math for that, I get 3. So my second order pair is 0 and 3, if I did that math correct. And then our third ordered pair, let's do that one. Find that one. So we're going to play our third domain value, plug in 1 into my function rule, and I have 2 times +1 plus 3. When I do the math, that's going to equal 5. So my third ordered pair in my function is going to be 1, 5. Okay? So that's basically how I find that. And I didn't write the range down here, so let's go ahead and write the range. The range would be 1. Remember, we typically write these in least to greatest order. 1, 3, and 5. Dang it, I can't get that 5 to stay there. All right. Hope you didn't have any questions on that. If you did, you can ask them tomorrow in class, okay? Now we're going to talk about something called function notation. Function notation is actually pretty simple, although it seems like it's kind of confusing. But function notation, I'm going to write in that form. And that's said f of x is how we say that. So repeat that with me. F of x. F of x, okay? Well, all f of x means is the same thing as y equals. So f of x and y mean the same thing, okay? So that should be easy for you, okay? We use f of x just to show that the equation represents a function, all right? So since the equation y equals 2x plus 3 is a function, we can instead use f of x equals 2x plus 3. You notice all I did was change the y to an f of x, okay? Now, if you'll notice, in that statement, f of x, it has an x there, all right? If I replace that x with a value like -1, all we do is we substitute, fix my pen, substitute that -1 in for the x there. So I substituted in for the x there. All right, so what I would have is I start with f of x equals 2x plus 3, and I take that -1 and plug it in, so I have f of -1 equals, now I'm going to put -1 where the x is. So f of -1, when I do the math on the right side, equals -2 plus 3, which is just going to be 1. Okay? So it's just another way of doing what we did on the page before, all right? Back in the first, with the function machine, okay? So let's do a couple of examples. So my first example is going to be f of x equals x minus 3 when the domain is negative 2, 0, 2, and 4. So remember, domain values, those are my x values I'm going to plug in. So I'm going to take negative 2 and I'm going to plug it in for x. So I'm going to find f of negative 2. That's going to equal negative 2. Make sure when we write this we put them in parentheses. Negative 2 squared minus 3. Now negative 2 squared just means negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's going to be my range value. So my range, my first one, is going to be 1. Similarly, I'm going to do the same thing for 0, 2, and 4. Okay, so what I would like for you to do is I'd like for you to just take just a moment and go ahead and substitute those 0, 2, and 4 and see what you get. Okay, so hopefully you got that f of 0 gives you 3, negative 3, f of 2 gives you 1, and f of 4 gives you 13. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and work this in the next problem, in example 2. In example 2, I give you f of x, I give you a g of x. G of x is the same thing as f of x, it's just a different function, okay? So when I see an f in the problem, I'm going to use the f of x. Okay, so that would be right here. I'm going to use that f of x. When I see g in the problem, like in B, I'm going to use the g of x and use the g of x for that one, okay? So let's go ahead and try one here real quick. Right, so f of negative 3 equals, now we're going to use this x squared plus 4x, and anywhere there's an x we're going to put a parenthesis. So I'm going to put a parenthesis where the x was and square it, plus 4, and I'm going to put a parenthesis where the x is. And anywhere that parenthesis is, I'm going to plug in this negative 3. So I'm going to put negative 3 here and negative 3 here. Now, negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3, which is just positive 9. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, so I'm going to put minus 12. Now 9 minus 12 is negative 3. So f of negative 3 is going to equal negative 3. All right, what I'd like for you to do now is just take a moment to see if you can work B and C out on your own. So pause the video. When you get finished, go ahead and start it back up and check and see how you did. Okay, as you can see with problem B, that g of negative 5, I plug in negative 5 in where the x was in for the g of x function, so negative 5 there. And then I'm just going to go through and do my work. Negative 3 times negative 5 makes positive 15, and then I have to add 5 to that, and I get 20. So now we see with f of 1 plus g of 1, f of 1 gives us 5, g of 3 gives us negative 4, so when I add 5 plus negative 4, I get 1 is my final answer. Right, hopefully that made sense. We'll go over that more in class tomorrow. Make sure you complete and submit the WISC, and you've taken good notes, and we'll see you in class.